And I hope the next president understands that we need help. You go home tonight. Sit down and write on a tablet the problems you think are the worst problems we confront. I don't know what you'd put down. Maybe nuclear proliferation, maybe climate change, maybe drugs, maybe AIDS, maybe economic problems, war, turmoil, whatever you put down, and I'll tell you something. We, the United States, cannot solve a single one of them by ourselves. How are you going to solve the problem of immigration without talking to Mexico? How do you solve the problem of nuclear proliferation without talking to Iran and North Korea? We need help, no matter what we tackle. And you see, I think in the past, the success of American foreign policy has been that while we pursued our own national interest, the period after World War II is a good illustration, other nations benefited from our leadership. It wasn't us and them in dealing with the problem, it was we. We were all in it together. Collective security, we called it. And I believe the next president of the United States will have to be concerned about competence. Now, this may make some of you feel a little uneasy. But the world has noted Katrina and how we dealt with it. The world has noted Iraq and how we dealt with it. And when you look at the polls that show the United States does not stand very high in public esteem, if you look down to the third, fourth, fifth paragraphs, you'll see something else. Not only do they object to our policies, which we understand, but they wonder about our ability to carry our policies out. Competence. Secretary Gates gave a speech the other day. He was talking about the budget of the State Department. Secretary of Defense came out in support for an increase in the budget of the State Department. I've been around Washington a long time. I've never seen that happen before. Secretary Gates is exactly right, in my judgment. We have to improve our ability to perform, our capability. And that, among other things, of course, means that we engage in nation building. It's not just a question of going into a country and blowing it apart. It's a question of going in, increasing the stability of the country, and then trying to build it. And that takes all kinds of skills. And we've had a mixed record, to put it kindly, of success at all of that. So I think the next president has to strengthen the non-military tools of power. Look, I understand why Americans want to give the Defense Department so much money. I understand why we want to have the biggest, strongest, preeminent army in all the world. If you want a surefire applause line before any audience in America, talk about strengthening the armed forces. What I don't understand is why we don't supply enough resources to the non-military aspects of dealing with these problems. See, I'm of the school that believes in negotiation. I'm not starry-eyed about that. I know you can't solve every problem with negotiations. I know that diplomacy has to be backed by power. I know that you have to use all of the tools of American power and to succeed in the conduct of American policy, but I think you need robust diplomacy to explain our policies, to understand the views of others, to dispel misunderstandings, to build trust, to collect intelligence, to deter bad actions, to reduce the chance of inadvertent military escalation, and of course to reach agreement. How do you solve problems without talking to people? If you know, let me know, would you? I've never bought into this idea that when things get tough, you withdraw your ambassador. You ever heard of that? That's exactly the wrong thing to do. When things get tough, you need the diplomats there. I was in the Congress, Paul Finley was too, when we began talking with members of the Supreme Soviet in the Soviet Union. I'd get up and give a speech, read it. My counterpart from the Soviet Union would get up and read a speech. Then we'd toast each other with vodka. And we came out for peace in the world. And we came out for prosperity for our grandchildren. And then we'd pat each other on the back and go home. And we did it the next year, and the next year, and the next year. And we kept it up. All of the time, keep in mind, either nation could blow the other nation off the face of the earth. And then something happened. Something happened is that we put our speeches away and we began to talk to one another. We didn't solve all the problems quickly. We kept talking. We kept talking. We talked for 40 years. When Ronald Reagan went to Berlin and said, "Tear down this wall, Mr. Gorbachev," he sent an arms control negotiator to Moscow. And we kept talking. I don't know how you solve these problems. It's better to jaw than to war, said Winston Churchill. Truman, Eisenhower, Marshall, Atchison, those are the heroes for me in the era of, I think, unparalleled American diplomacy. Well, I guess I'd better wind up here. The president's getting a little nervous. Students want to get out of here and do other more important things than listen to me. I've got a lot of good material here. I'll just skip over a lot of it, I believe. I'll come back next year and finish it.